Okay, so hello and welcome to the Skillify session. I'm Dr. Neha Singh Tomar, working with Amity University Online in the economics area. So we will today talk about on a very most current and a widely discussed topic, and also a heated matter for debate. So the topic for today's discussion is uh, that Indian rupee is falling or the dollar is strengthening more. So let me give you a brief overview and a background of this particular topic. Now, since July 2022, the rupee, talking about the value of rupee, has been oscillating between 79 and 80, protected by the Reserve Bank of India. Again, while importers, oil companies, and government remain buyers at a lower level. Talking about the dollar index. So dollar index has been rising from 104.30 levels. And again, as euro, British pound sterling, Japanese yen fell to their near 20 years of lows. Apart from that, US Federal Reserve raised interest rate by 75 base point, and again giving an indication for further increasing by 50 base point in the month of December. Certainly, dollar index still looks bullish towards 112 level. However, RBI, which had been protecting the rupee, not letting it cross 80 levels, suddenly left it, and their pair ran to lowest level, that is of 80.98 on 22nd of September. Now, so this was a brief background about the topic. Talking about the question, that is, what is depreciation or falling of currency or rupee generally means? See, the value of Indian currency or any other currency depends on its demand. If demand for any currency increases, its value also goes up, and this is termed as appreciation. On the other hand, if a demand for currency declines, its value also goes down, and this is known as depreciation. Now, the demand for Indian currency goes up when more and more foreign investors make investment in India, and that is why the foreign investors or companies invest in when they invest in India or buy any products from India, they first convert their currency into rupees, as they can invest only in rupees in the Indian market. So as a result, what happens? The demand for Indian currency increases and its value is strengthened against the US dollar and other currencies. On the other hand, if I talk about the Indian individuals and the companies importing something like maybe crude oil or any other raw material or maybe gold, so they have to make payment in dollars. Again, the de facto global currency, that is the US dollar. So Indians sell rupees to buy dollars because US dollar is the currency to make payments for all sort of international trade. So consequently, what happened? The demand for dollar goes up and the rupee weakens against the US currency. Now coming to exchange rate, that is rupee exchange rate in terms of dollar. So rupees exchange rate vis-a-vis the dollar is essentially the number of rupee one needs to buy 1 unit of dollar. So again, this is an important metric to buy not just US goods and also the other sort of goods, services, say crude oil, maybe any other sort of other items or commodities, trade in which generally happens in US dollars. So broadly speaking, if I talk about, the rupee depreciates importing goods and service more costlier. On the other hand, there is one plus point also for this, when Indian rupee is depreciating or falling, that is, our exported goods or our export products become cheaper for the foreign buyers. Now, as we know that since India has been a net importer, so we import more generally what we export. So the rupee has gradually depreciated over the time. Now, coming to this, particular chart, as you can see here in this chart, that the rupee is falling in comparison to dollar, and again the position of rupee, that is again percentage change against a dollar in the year 2022, which clearly reflects that rupee is falling or depreciating in terms of US dollar. And of course, other currencies are also falling, but here we are discussing and predominantly about rupee. Now, The question arises, what is the reason behind the falling of rupee, or why the rupee is being falling? So number one is that is the overseas investors are exiting the Indian markets. Now, because of US Fed announcement to increase the interest rate in the US, and again the Russia Ukraine war also, foreign investors are exiting their investment in India. And when the foreign investors or overseas investors redeem their investment in India, they get their money in rupees, obviously, because they are dealing in Indian market, Indian currency. But again, they have to convert their holding in rupees to dollars. So they will buy dollars in exchange for the rupee. Now, consequently, what will happen as a result? The demand for dollar is strengthened and the demand for rupee declines. So Indian currency value again depreciate against the US dollar. So this is one factor. Apart from that, there are various other factors also, that is multitude of factors, including ongoing Ukraine crisis, the raising of interest rate by US Federal Reserve, investors selling Indian stocks to buy foreign bonds, and again are some of the reasons behind falling of rupee. Again, inflation is also rising across the world, and because of which, what happened? The domestic growth slows, and investors generally look to sell their Indian assets into the, assets, and again put the money in the US markets. So this is again one reason for depreciating or falling down the rupee. Again, the dollar primary, because the another reason for falling of rupee is the trade deficits, that is the import are increasing at a much higher pace in comparison to the export. So weaker rupee again make import more expensive, and exerting a short term, what you can say, a negative effect on the GDP also, and on the domestic production also. Then again, increase in import is also mainly due to sharp increase in the oil prices following the Ukraine crisis. The increase in import bill for other items, for other essential commodities, coal, particularly raw materials, has also bloated the overall import bill. So in a nutshell, we can say that the factors that contribute into falling of Indian currency in relation to US dollar is such as like Russia Ukraine conflict, soaring crude oil prices, tightening of global financial conditions, and again significant dollar demand from oil importers, elevated also again the steep descent seen in the Indian currency. Now, coming to okay, so coming to why, what is the impact of weakening of rupee? So when I talk about impact of weakening of rupee, so weakening of rupee again, adversely, no doubt adversely will impact the overall Indian economy and the ordinary citizens. Okay, so it will negatively impact the Indian economy and ordinary citizens. So the falling of rupee signifies that, as there is a depreciation of the value against US dollar, which again broadly means that the government, that the companies, that the citizens are forced to pay increasing amount of money. Again, the depreciation of money also indicates the inflation. That is, as the price of rupee falls, what will happen? The importing goods, the raw materials become increasingly expensive, which again pushes up the prices in the domestic market. Now, as we all know, that India is the world third largest, consumer of oil and imports, and over 80% of it comes from other countries to meet its requirements and needs. So a weakening rupee put pressure already high import prices of crude and raw material, resulting again in a higher imported inflation. Now, with the increase in the fuel prices against almost all other goods, commodities, products sold in India will also increase, and that is what this whole phenomena is known as the cost push inflation. So the personal finance, if I talk about, of Indians will also be get impacted both directly and indirectly by falling of the rupee. Why? Because the prices of household goods are also expected to go up. Also, as fuel prices go up, the price of other items such as food grains or maybe fertilizers or other commodities also start shooting up, and which will ultimately erode the purchasing power of one's salary, making it again little difficult, especially for the people who are at the bottom of the pyramid. So this is one thing. Another adverse effect or impact is that is the industries. So industries where import a very crucial component in the whole production segment or in the production cycle, so they are likely to feel the heat more. Now, industrial production costs are likely to increase, especially if I talk about the sectors like automotives, like electronics, like hardware, like other segments where import dependency is very very high. So certainly with falling of rupee, import will become expensive while export competitive. But again, those industries, I mean, in a nutshell, if I say that the falling of rupee is again bad or will have an adverse effect for the overall industrial production. Now, the question arises here that how to deal with this rupee depreciation, or what you can say, how you can encash this rupee depreciation. Is there any way? So the answer to this question is, as you know, the sharp rupee depreciation no doubt is a negative development for the finances. For I mean, talking about for individual finances, there are certain ways to benefit from it also. For example, you can turn this depreciation in the rupee for your advantage. How? By investing in the international funds. So when you invest in international funds, you get exposure in the foreign currency through investing in rupees, and any appreciation in the value of foreign currency or any depreciation in the rupee will increase your returns. Now another strategy to deal with this rupee depreciation is you can tilt your portfolio, that is investment portfolio, towards companies that have a substantial amount of foreign exchange earnings. For example, companies related to maybe IT, FMCG, pharma sectors. So such companies are far more likely to report higher revenue, profit growth, and as their products become cheaper overseas, and so they keep their margin intact. So the solution to deal with the situation is likely, I mean, the sharp rupee depreciation is to build a diversified sort of portfolio. So this is how you can deal with the depreciation of money. Now coming to role of Reserve Bank in this whole situation, or what you can say in the depreciation of money. So, certainly, RBI regularly monitors the foreign exchange market and intervenes in the situation of excess volatility. RBI has taken several measures recently to ensure foreign currency inflow and to prop up the rupee. And I mean, for example, high overseas borrowing limits for companies, easier foreign ownership rules in the government bonds, rate of returns in the bond yields in USA, and again rate of returns in any Indian investment. Apart from that, RBI has also proposed the rupee settlement mechanism, under which foreign companies can make foreign payment in rupees, unlike the US dollar. Again, this will all expect to reduce the need for US dollar for foreign trade and stabilizing the value of rupee somewhat. Talking about options available for RBI and policymakers under such circumstances or scenario. So, RBI cannot and also should not attempt to stop the rupee from sinking indefinitely. Why? Because, India's foreign exchange reserve will eventually run out if it depends or if it defends the rupee, because international investors have considerably more sway in the financial world. So, majority of financial analysts and other, I mean, the stakeholders also think that allowing the rupee to weaken and serve as a natural shock absorber to the unfavorable terms of trade is a wiser course of action. Again, government should limit its borrowing, and RBI should concentrate on reducing the inflation rather, focusing on the devaluation or depreciation or falling of currency, controlling that part. Now, so this was all about concluding the topic today. So the currency decline is probably going to make, export more competitive, which will again benefit the economy. The rupee has remained, again, in terms of, if I talk about the falling of currency, so the rupee has remained more resilient than in other earlier crises. If I talk about global financial crisis of 2008 or taper tantrum of 2013, the rupee has lost value when compared to US dollar, but again it has gained value when compared to other major currencies, say for example euro or maybe Japanese yen. So depreciation of rupee typically, reduces the current account deficit, since it increases the export. Why? Because, and how? Because, export become cheaper in the international market, because of falling of Indian currency in terms of US dollar. So India is now dealing with high inflation, and more depreciation could make a further problem worse. But as the value of rupee continues to fall, there is a potential also that central bank would interface and again interfere, and can control the whole situation. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you.